sometimes I just think about it, think about direction, then it is there. Boom.
I'm not okay.
For me, there is no single night I will sleep without thinking about the day when I will die. I'm telling you. About 1 month into Carnivore, I felt my life expectancy increase. Once you drink the milk, its metabolism leads to the production of a certain morphine, and that morphine is destructive to the gut, and that morphine is very, very constipating. I'll tell you this, right now I despise plants. I despise them.
Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Yes, I know I say this every time, but I do have a special guest today. I have a doctor from Uganda, Dr. Tumusiingize, also known as Innocent. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. I am so happy to have you because firstly, your username is Carnivore Afrika, which made me so happy. Please tell us more about who you are, what do you do, and what did your life look like before you found the carnivore diet?
Thank you so much, Phumi, for having me. And I will say that this is an honor. It is a chance to share with the world and tell the world something which has changed my life. My name is Tumusiingize, Innocent, just like Phumi has introduced me. I'm a public health dentist. I'm involved in a number of things. I'm involved in private practice. I am involved in also humanitarian work. We have an NGO, a dental NGO called Build Your Smile Dental Foundation, where we give all sorts of dental services to communities. We do educational programs such as annual dental symposia. There are a number of students that we support who are studying to become dentists, just like me. Of course, once we go to communities, also treat people. We give, we do cleanings, feedings. We give artificial replacements and implants and all sorts of things. So, and of course, during the course of my work, I've come to learn so much about, connecting the dots between the kind of work and the findings which I find in the patient's mouth and their lives. Together with the carnivore, I've come to find out so many things which I didn't know. And I see that actually the things that I have been knowing are just a drop in the ocean of the things which are there to know. And before I did carnivore, before I ever knew about carnivore, I used to live a simple life, just like all the other people. I've had a chance to listen to you. For me, the kind of conditions that you are going through, I had some conditions. For example, I had a massive brain fog, which started in 1998. I don't know whether you were already born, but that's when I was joining my secondary school, and all along I didn't know how and why I got that brain fog. And then, of course, a few years ago, I was also beginning to get some other conditions, such as I was becoming overweight, and this was taking a toll on my joints. And I was also having some other conditions, such as piles. I was having piles which were on and off. I was having heartburn, this really, really bad heartburn. And that heartburn started, by the way, when I was also, the same time that my brain fog started, that's when also the heartburn started. And on connecting dots, I realized that actually I got that from porridge, which comes from maize. And I remember I talked about maize, and I also started connecting dots. So many things. So basically, that's how my life has been before I started Carnivore. And that's in a nutshell who I am.
Wow. Your work that you do is amazing. And to have all those symptoms starting from high school, that's terrible, especially the brain fog. I can only imagine, because, whatever happens in secondary school determines your whole life. So having brain fog at that time must have been very concerning, and not knowing why, also very scary. So thank God you are where you are now, despite all of that. And thank you for sharing. And yeah, I have to say, the fact that you're a dentist, I have to tell you that the one and only time in my life when I got a cavity was when I went vegan, and I got that cavity only 3 months into being a vegan. And I was so upset because I really take care of my teeth, and I thought like the world is ending. How can I have a cavity? I thought I wasn't having sugar because I thought the vegan diet was so healthy. But now I understand that that was actually an all sugar diet, and that's why I got a cavity. So I'm sure you'll tell us much more about that.
Yeah, of course. Now, in your case, and how I know how cavities come to start, I would say that when you started being vegan, that one accelerated the process of the decay. But I would say that that cavity, it takes quite some time actually for a cavity to develop. It takes years, maybe even up to 3 years. But now, once you begin ingesting or eating certain foods, it can it can progress very, very fast. But again, considering the kind of lifestyle that we have been living before, it is life around carbs, and carbs, table sugar, and all these things, honey, cakes. That's the kind of lifestyle we live. So it makes sense that people are going to get cavities, and through the carnivore journey, I've actually come to realize that you will find there are some people who probably abuse or take these sugars and might not so much complain about cavities, whereas others, it is a very big problem. And even once you go to even the other family members, there are a number of them who have such problems. So now, again, that one comes to the genes. Now, the genes through carnivore, I've come to realize that they don't lead the way, they don't determine. They come in as the opportunistic member. They take advantage. So if, let's say, in your family, people are susceptible to decay, if you consume carbohydrates, especially those ones which are refined, you're going to get dental problems. But
Wow.
if you don't consume the carbohydrates, then even when you're susceptible in your family, nobody will ever get the problems with the teeth or with the decay. So
Wow.
basically, I've come to learn so many things through carnivore, and these things were not taught in school at all.
No, no, not even. Not at all. So before we get into the fountain of knowledge that you are, how did you find carnivore for yourself? And what made you try it? Because I'm sure it went against everything that you've ever been told to do. Just like me, I was so scared to start because I thought, what if I die in the first month? And, I was scared about saturated fat. I was scared about, oh, red meat is inflammatory, red meat causes this and that. So when you first heard about it, what made you actually take the plunge?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I was hoping that you would ask that question because I want the world to know. Um, I was comfortable in my own world and I was not bothered about carnivore. Naturally, people love meat, we know that, but we have been conditioned to be scared of meat. In our communities in Africa, we know there are people who, if it is, let's say, Christmas time, it is a must to eat meat, and there are even some women who end up divorcing or separating with their husbands once they don't buy meat on Christmas. So we have always loved meat. Yeah, it's true. We have always loved meat, but I had never thought that actually there's anything such as a carnivore diet. I had never thought that someone can eat meat and live. So
Mm.
I had no plans whatsoever and I didn't know about it until something happened to my daughter. So my daughter, who is making 12 years tomorrow, when she was about 6 or 7 years, she started complaining of abdominal pain.
Wow.
And it would be on and off, on and off. We didn't know what it was. Every time she would complain, would give her pain medication, would give her some medicines, thinking that maybe it is say food poisoning or something. To be on and off. But then this problem started getting worse. And then sometime I took her to see a doctor, a clinician, and then they 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 they, they diagnosed her with the peptic ulcers. So when
Okay.
they did that, I said, "Oh, okay, maybe this is what has been disturbing her, despite her young age." But I said,
Mm.
"Okay, maybe." Then they gave her something they call a pyrokit. Pyrokit is a combination of drugs, about 3 drugs they give people who are having peptic ulcers. And she took it for about 2 weeks. And after the 2 weeks were over, it took about 2 days, and then she started complaining about abdominal pain again. So after some time, I took her to a different doctor, and then they run tests again, and again they confirmed the same thing. It was they run what you call a stool test of H. pylori. That's how they call it. A test for ulcers, peptic ulcers, and it was positive again. So they again gave her a pyrokit, and this time they made a change in the combination, the drugs. They made some changes. Then again, the same story happened. After taking it, she started complaining. So I was now wondering, what is this happening? What is happening to my daughter? But I want the people to know that my daughter, when she was born, she was underweight. She was about 2 kilograms or so, and she actually didn't have muscle. She only had skin. She was really small, and the first vaccine which is supposed to be receiving, they didn't give it to her because they didn't have where to inject it. So, and later on, they told us to go home and take her after some time. The doctors hoped that after some time she would be having some muscle. And then for the first month, she didn't breastfeed. Well, actually, she was breastfeeding, but there was no breast milk in the mother's breasts. But we
Okay.
didn't know. We were really
Oh.
naive as young parents. We didn't know, and she was not thriving at all. She was always looking miserable, always crying. Someone who's not eating, fasting, basically for a baby. So it took us about a whole month to know that actually there was no breast milk. And then that's when we started giving her cow's milk. And after
Okay.
giving her cow's milk, she started gaining weight and getting better. So now back to this time, when the pill kit for the second time it didn't work out, I was wondering what was happening. And a number of things used to happen. I could take her from a doctor to another, to a doctor to another. Actually, at some time, we realized that she had developed anemia.
Gosh.
And also the sad part about this abdominal pain is that there's no pain, there's no tablet she would take which would
That
make
can.
her feel better. No, she would take paracetamol, take ibuprofen, whatever it is, and she would not feel any better. up to when would give her injections. Again, it's the doctor's advice, because the doctors will say, some of the peptic ulcers, if you give diclofenac, it's going to get worse. But you know what it means to see your child crying in pain and you can't do anything. So I would find ways of still giving her the injection, and when I would give her the injection, she would get better. I mean, the pain would subside. So now time came, and then at her school they called me, and then they told me, we don't know what is happening to your daughter, but she's gasping
Oh
for
no.
breath. Yes. So I ran. I drove quickly to the school. I found her in a state which was, I had never seen her like that. She was doing strange things, not breathing. So I started to think that maybe this is due to due to the anemia, because once someone's having less blood, it means she's not absorbing oxygen. I started
Yeah.
thinking so many things in my head, but the same, I took her to some clinic, and then she was diagnosed with asthma. Now, they put her on the nebulizer, and then also afterwards they gave her an inhaler.
Okay.
So after that, now when they said she had asthma, I was not surprised, because my late father, also had asthma. So I thought that, oh, this runs in the family. So
Yeah.
I started preparing myself to raise a child who is having asthma. But now this is where things took a turn. When we reached home, uh, every time she would eat food, she would get attacks. Not pollen, not coldness, but food. Whichever
Mm.
food it is, whether it is beans, whether it is avocado, whatever it is, like say after 20 minutes after eating food, she would begin getting asthmatic attacks. And every time she would use the inhaler, it would not work. It wouldn't work.
My
So I
God.
would, despite having an inhaler, every evening I was taking her to the clinic
For
to
nebulizing.
have, yes, for nebulizing.
Oh.
So I said, what is this?
Mm.
And then in due course also a number of things kept on happening. Should get mental disorders and confusion. She had a rapid heart rate. She sometimes would collapse,
My
falls on
God.
the ground, and then she would get confusion. She would hit her head on the wall or on the floor, and
My
then
God.
she would take about 6 hours without speaking a single word.
My gosh.
Then finally when she would speak, uh, she would not speak words properly. She wouldn't. For
Mm.
example, when she would be saying daddy, she would say something like dada, you know. A
Oh.
an 8-year-old child failing to speak. So I was like, no, what is going to happen? Those days I wouldn't even travel. I would not travel at all. I was always on standby. I
Mm.
was on tension. So
Yeah,
I started looking
obviously.
for answers. I went to YouTube, started looking for answers, because now the doctors were not helping me. Every time I go to the doctor, now the doctors started referring me to specialists.
Mm.
Now, when I had specialists, now I said this cannot be good. I knew I
Mm-hmm.
was going to spend millions on medicines and things which wouldn't help. So I
Yeah.
said, let me look for answers. When I went to YouTube, the way we type in things, I type in, I say how to heal, natural ways, to treat asthma, things like that, natural ways to causes of chronic abdominal pain and things like that. And then I'll begin getting leads, and that's when I came to learn about the carnivore diet. So I would listen to the coaches speaking, and I didn't believe them at all. But now, what changed my mind was what was in the comment section.
I know, I feel the same.
By the way, then I didn't know so much about YouTube, and I never used to go to comments. I didn't even know that so much was in the comments. I never knew that. But when I went to the comments, people were talking about things, how they were fat and then they lost weight on carnivore, how diseases went to remission, and this was too convincing. And then I mean, people talk about brain fog, and now that they were talking about me, and for me, to be honest, I would give anything to get rid of this brain fog. Because when I was in primary, up when I reached the secondary, I never used to read books, but I would pass, always being the number one, number two in class. But when brain fog came, I started struggling with academics, and every year it would get worse.
Yeah.
And I would feel bad when people who I was better than them in class, they were doing things, they were not struggling at all, and I was, and sometimes they would even speak fun about me and how I
Mm.
am performing badly, those things. So I would give anything to get rid of the
Mm.
brain fog. But again, I had a problem because I just knew that my daughter would, if one day I would travel, go somewhere, and something, maybe there will be a problem with the communication, and my daughter is going to fail to breathe, and then she will die.
Yeah.
So I said, what? I don't have anything to lose. Let me try carnivore. And the very first day that she started carnivore, there was no asthmatic attack. The second day, no attack. The third day, no attack. The fourth day, no attack. Yet the other days, it was every evening. Even at the clinic, they would be expecting us. And when you reach, you'd hear them saying, the other girl who gets asthma attacks is here. Where is the nebulizer? You know, they were always ready for us. So now, that one started changing everything. And of course, even after some time, me myself, I started getting, for example, the first thing to go away was the heartburn. Heartburn disappeared. I would get chest pain almost every day. This kind of chest pain, which is really bad, and I would feel like it is coming from the heart. For me, there is no single night I would sleep without thinking about the day when I will die. I'm telling you. But I saw what was happening in my daughter's life when she started carnivore, and myself, about 1 month into carnivore, I felt my life expectancy increase. Nobody needed to tell me that. I just feel that my life, actually, even these days, I've told so many of my friends. Well, I don't know, of course, at the end of the day, it's God who decides, but I've told them that, you know what? If I don't die from a road traffic accident or something like a trauma, I know I'm going to live over 100. And I feel it within me because the kind of weight and things which used to disturb me are gone. So, yeah, that's a long way of narrating how I found carnivore, but basically that's how things happened.
I can't even breathe. I'm so emotional. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for your family. Oh, when you, I just can't, I don't know what to say. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like, it's like hearing a miracle, like you lived it. I don't need to tell you.
Yes, I
Amazing.
know. Yes, I know everyone has the kind of things they go through. I've heard you, talk about how you used to have this polycystic ovarian syndrome and the kind of pain, you know. Everyone, because we are different, we have different genes, and the
Yeah.
genes, the genes always determine the kind of conditions people are going to have, even when the cause is the same. The cause could be, let's say, A1 diary, but people are going to get different conditions out of that depending on their genes. The cause could be carbohydrates. One person is going to get a problem with the liver, another one with the kidney, another one with the nervous system, another one with the eyes, when the cause is the same and the gene. So it's always a different experience for each one of us, but I'm glad that we found Carnivore. And sometimes I can't even understand why it is difficult for people to understand or to even embrace Carnivore, even when they are going through these difficult things. Anyway, I think I'm going ahead of myself, but that's how I found Carnivore, and I'll tell you this. Right now, I despise plants. I despise them. So in my family, I still have I and my eldest daughter, we are Carnivore. Then the other two girls, they eat plants. But of course, I've made changes. I make sure that they have meat and and animal products. My wife, she's still there in the middle. She has seen Carnivore, but she still has things she's thinking about, her own reasons. But I'm hoping that one day she's going to make that decision. But Carnivore, there's nothing like Carnivore. I'm telling you, there's nothing like it.
Oh, I'm still I'm not okay. I'm so happy for you, and I don't have children yet, but like just hearing you, I can feel the heaviness, the anxiety, the mental toll of having a sick child. I don't think there's anything worse than that. And now, one, two, three, it's gone.
Yes, gone with the wind, as they say it.
Wow. So your daughter is, and yeah, happy birthday to her tomorrow, like 12 years old, after having such a rough start to life. And wow.
Yeah, it's a joy. Yesterday she wrote a note for me and her mother, and it was very encouraging. Said, in 2 days I'm going to be 12 years, but I thank you, Dad and Mom, because you have been with me. You have been with me through the bad times. You have fed me very well, and I'm
Oh
very
my
happy that it's very, 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 very encouraging words. So it's a joy that we were able to find this, and I don't know if what can I say about Carnivore. What can I say? You know,
God.
so many things, so many things. I told you already about the heartburn. Uh, there are some other things, by the way, which I experienced. And if there are always those things which are major, you always remember them. But there are some others. Sometimes, if you don't note them down, you will
Yeah.
forget them. For example, I used to have I never used to wear closed shoes, because when I would wear closed shoes about 3 days in a row, I would develop blisters
Oh
on
my
my
gosh.
toes.
Wow.
Now, when I went Carnivore, that one is gone. Then when I was starting Carnivore, I was 85 kilograms, and I was even gaining more. Well, to some people that one might not be much, but to my joints and to my body, that was too much for me,
Hmm.
because I was beginning to get knee injuries.
Wow.
And when we would go to different places, and then it comes to time to, let's say, visit, God make the call. We call it the call of nature. When you're going to the bathroom, the kind of places we go to, the African style.
Yes.
One of the places called the shit hole. So
Yeah.
it would be very, very difficult to bend and do the
I
number
can
two.
imagine. I
Yeah,
can
so you find
imagine.
I'm bending with only one leg, which has a better knee, and then the other one I have to stretch it, and it has
Oh
to
my
almost knock the door, because I can't bend it, because I was having problems with the joints because of the much pain due to the
God.
weight.
Wow.
So, and I guess due to the inflammation, which I come to realize of late that is has been from the A1 milk. So now that one is gone. The
Wow.
knee pain, the weight, I was 85 last time I checked. When I went to Carnivore, I went up to 70. But of late, I realized that now I'm 74. I gained some weight, but I know that this is due to the lean muscle mass. I know it is not due to the fat, no.
Hmm.
And then I also realized I used to have paralysis in my fingers. Every time I would
Wow.
sleep in the night, I would wake up and I'd find this finger here and the next one are paralyzed. When I went
Goodness.
carnivore, now that one disappeared. And then I also have to say that even the erections got better and stronger. And sometimes I just think about it, think about erection, and then it is there. Boom, it is there. And then also, I also discovered that on carnivore, I'm less irritable. Less
Indeed.
irritable. I would discover this by, especially when I'm driving. When I'm driving in Uganda, we have these guys we call border riders. It is more of a motorcycle taxis. These guys
Yeah.
do all sorts of annoying things when they are driving. Their motorcycles, they crisscross in between, in front of the road. They just all of a sudden cross the road. Sometimes you find when there are two of them and then they're holding hands in the middle of the road at night. They do all sorts of things, and sometimes I would feel like stopping the car and go to fight with them. But when I started Carnivore, I realized that when I see them, I'm not even bothered about them. I'm really, really cool. And then also I realized that on Carnivore, there is no eye gunk. When you sleep and wake up and then you have things around your eyes.
Yeah.
On
Yeah.
Carnivore, there's no such a thing. And then
Right.
also I talked about the hemorrhoids. Those ones were on and off, but now they are gone. I used to even have this kind of pain when I was passing urine, and I never knew what it was. I did tests. I thought maybe I was having some kind of infection. There was no infection. And when I would be urinating, have you ever been bitten by red ant or an
Thankfully
insect?
not. But a
Uh,
bee,
may,
yes.
so I would every time I would be passing urine, I would feel like something's biting me, and it was there, and it was a problem. Even the urine would not even come out properly. Like I would have to
Mhm.
squeeze it.
Oh
But
my
when I
gosh.
went carnivore, that one disappeared, like for good. And then, of course, you know very well, no more hunger, no snoring. I even, something strange, I also perceived that even the way I perceive time now changed. Then,
What?
yes, the way I perceive time in my head. For example,
Wow.
the kind of feeling like when you're busy and then you find all of a sudden it is 2 p.m. and you don't know how
Mm-hmm.
you go to 2 p.m. But now it became the reverse. I can work and work and work, and I think maybe it's already 2 p.m., but I find it's just midday. I don't know how to explain that. I was talking with a cousin of mine who is a medical doctor, and then he told me, you know what? I think it's because you're not having stress. The way how cortisol was working has changed. I cannot explain it, but I also experienced that. So, what can I tell you about carnivore? Only good stuff, and I hope people can embrace carnivore because it changes everything.
Everything you said, I'm like, no wonder people don't believe us. This is miraculous. Like, if you're hearing it for the first time, you're going to say, no, there's no way. But it's true. And like you said, the comment section on these videos, including the comment section on this video, you will see there's just testimony after testimony. And who would have thought that eating the proper human diet is going to fix every aspect of your life, emotional, physical, psychological, everything, just because you
Yeah.
stopped eating the wrong thing.
Yeah, exactly. Even, it changes all the aspects of life. even a spiritual, by the way. I
Yes.
realized that people who are carnivore actually they are grateful to God. Those ones who are not on carnivore, they are not, because they
No.
wonder why. Over the years, man has been doing very many things, changing nature, changing food, and people don't understand that. For example, once they're eating oranges or these mangoes or the passion fruits or whatever it is, they say, "Oh, this is natural. This is what God gave us." Yeah, when they're eating wheat, they say, "Oh, God gave these things to us." When they're taking A1 milk, they're like, "Oh, but this is natural. This is from cows." They have no idea that man has been over the years
Ish, yeah.
transforming and changing these things and arming them to be dangerous to human beings. So now, once they eat these things and they make them sick, they begin blaming God. Now, God gave us this food, we are eating it, now it is making us sick. You know, Someone has money, lots of money. They're having diabetes, they're having hypertension, they're having all sorts of chronic illnesses. They're having cancer, but the money cannot even help them. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they don't know that there is carnivore. They don't know, and the doctors they don't give them that information. They don't
No.
know. But once you discover carnivore, you actually realize that God designed us to live for a very, very long time without falling sick, without having conditions. You know, God designed us as long as we're eating the proper food, we don't fall sick. We eat the wrong food, we fall sick. So once people find carnivore, they no longer blame God. They know that they have to work hard and get the proper food, and as long as they eat the proper food, nobody ever see them in hospitals
Yeah.
because of sickness.
Yeah.
But once they don't know carnivore, they are just at the masses. They cannot openly condemn God or curse him because they know there are consequences. But in their hearts, they're like, God, why? God, why? Why me? Why me? Why me? I wish they would discover that with the carnivore, they are going to live lives without pain. You will realize that if you look at my earlier videos, I made some changes to my channel, to the logo and even the slogan. And I changed to the new slogan which says, choose meat to gain a life without pain.
Wow. I love it.
Because we know that once you choose meat, once you choose animal products, once you choose carnivore, you're going to have a life without pain. I know that one is a given.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much. Um, I'm very overwhelmed for the first time. Don't know what to do, which is great. But I just want to know what's your favorite meat? Um, do you eat or do you drink A2 dairy? Uh, do you have pasteurized, raw, things like that? What foods do you eat? What foods does your daughter eat? What's your favorites? And what keeps you going on this way of eating?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you so much. I was hoping that you would ask me that question. So, uh, for the most part, I'm eating beef, but we also eat pork a lot. Actually, even when my daughter was recovering, she made about 60% of her recovery eating pork. The reason why we eat pork so much is because pork tends to be soft and it comes
Okay.
with fat.
Mm-hmm.
Beef here doesn't have that much fat. It doesn't. And beef in my region is very, very tough. Sometimes you can boil it for 2 hours, and even when you eat it, it is still very, very tough.
Okay.
And then it means that you have to first grind it. But then also, when I was still learning these things, I would do first boil meat and then grind it, and then it wouldn't have that much taste. So we wouldn't enjoy it that much, but pork was really enjoyable. Even the other family members who are not carnivore, they enjoyed pork so much. So we eat beef, we eat pork, we eat goat. We have lots of goats here. We eat eggs, chicken especially when I travel. That's when I travel to other parts of Uganda. I usually eat chicken because it's readily available. The grilled chicken, and then I also, of course, without if I'm not eating pork, any other meat I'll eat, it has to be with fat, and I use tallow. I use pork lard. Pork lard, we usually use it, for the most part, we use it when you're frying
Mm-hmm.
eggs at home, when they're frying food, the normal foods, even the plants, they use pork lard. Then I also use cow ghee a lot, and then I also use sometimes I use butter. I like butter because it there's cow ghee usually it has some kind of smell which I don't like that much, but butter doesn't have that smell. But butter tends to be more expensive here.
Yeah.
So
Everywhere.
yeah, so for the most part, I use cow ghee, and then I use beef tallow with those other meats that I've told you about. So about dairy, I've been experimenting with dairy. And I would, just like you said a few weeks ago or days ago, you said I'm breaking up with my. You said sweetheart Olaf. I don't remember how you framed it, but you said you are breaking up with the dairy, and I could understand your pain because once you go on carnivore, that is kind of this thing which fills up. Yeah, because you find you don't have so much choice of the things you want to drink. It's either water, sometimes which has salt, and then also you not drink other things. So dairy, milk is this kind of thing which you can drink. But so I have been experimenting with milk. So by the way, I realized that milk is the one which was giving me this other pain.
Mm.
So when I went carnivore, after some time I started drinking milk because I was like, but milk is from animals. So I said, let me
Yeah.
try it again. So after taking milk for 2 to 3 days, the pain came back and I
Wow.
left
Okay.
it. Then also when I took butter and cow ghee, I got the same pain. So I realized that actually these things they still have a component of milk which is inflammatory. So I
Mm.
found ways to go about with butter and cow ghee, which is made from the A1 milk. For it, when I'm preparing that kind of butter, I mean when I'm preparing the when I'm dealing with the butter or the cow ghee, I have to first heat it, melt it, add something, a little rock salt. You know rock salt?
Yeah.
Uh, yes, a little rock salt, and then it doesn't give that kind of pain. So
Wow.
I experimented with the milk, then I realized that actually A1 is not good. So
Mm-hmm.
I tried to look for A2. Now A2 was a very, very big problem getting A2 where I am. But after
Mm.
some time I successfully got A2, and then I we went crazy with the milk. We started drinking it. We drank. Of course, we knew that we cannot pasteurize this milk. We don't boil it. We take it
Mm-hmm.
raw, or we
Mm-hmm.
ferment it. Even when you are fermenting it, for the most part, we ferment it when it is raw.
Mm-hmm.
So we started fermenting milk, and it will take me, if it is raw milk and you're fermenting it, it takes up to about 8 days for it to get ready. And
Yeah.
once you pasteurize it, within a day or two, it is ready, fermented. So there's a difference between when you pasteurize it and when it's not pasteurized. But I'm telling you, we went crazy with the A2 milk. We drank, like, gulp, glasses and glasses of fermented milk, raw milk. My kids would drink. Even the other elder, the one who had the condition, she was also drinking. And after about 2 weeks, it was a moment of truth. So I started feeling the other chest pain,
Oh
but
no.
with the A2 milk, pain was like a third of what actually like a quarter of what I used to feel with A1 milk. After
Okay.
taking it for 2 weeks, but if I'm taking A1 milk, just 3 days, the pain is
Yeah.
back and is too
And
much.
worse. Yeah.
So now I also realize that whether you ferment A2 milk or whether you take it raw, you will still get some negative effects. Whether it is the A1, of course, we know that A1 is very, very inflammatory. We know that, and nobody should be taking A1 milk. Nobody,
Yeah.
because
True.
it is really problematic. I'll tell you, before I knew a number of things about milk, I decided to ferment A1 milk, and I fermented it for the same number of days. It was raw. That's number one, but again, I fermented it for about 8 days, and I took it. After taking that milk, it gave me really, really nasty constipation, really, really nasty. And
Wow.
in order to get rid of that stool, I have to become creative. So A1 milk. Moreover, actually, for what I've learned, even from one of the doctors, there's a doctor called Natasha Campbell McBride, or the one of the GAPS diet.
Hmm.
Um, she says that, of course, she doesn't advocate for pasteurizing milk, but if it comes to A1, if you don't pasteurize it, it's going to make you sick. So, but for me,
Wow.
yes, because that milk is from unhealthy cows. All those cows
Oh.
they always have mastitis, they're infertile,
Mhm.
they have so
Oh my
many
gosh.
bad things associated with those cows. Those cows, their milk, once you drink the milk, it its metabolism leads to the production of a certain morphine, and that morphine is destructive to the gut, and that morphine is very, very constipating. And I know that is the morphine which gave me constipation, no doubt about that. So
Wow.
that's why people where they sell I mean the governments, they don't allow people to sell milk which is not pasteurized, because they know the milk will make people sick. But even when you pasteurize it, it will still make people sick because it's very, 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 very inflammatory. But now,
Wow.
when it comes to the A2 milk from the goats, from the local breeds, if it is A2, it is more forgiving to the body. But the bottom line is that whether it is fermented or not fermented, it still contains whey. Whey will not come out, that protein called whey. And whey is very, very sneaky. It is going to raise insulin.
Okay.
Even when it is not a sugar, it raises
Oh,
insulin. And you and me, we both know that when insulin goes high, then our health begins falling apart. We don't want anything to raise our insulin. When I started taking milk, it was A2, it was fermented, but my ketones began going so low that usually I'm around, my ketone meter measures in units called parts per million, ppm. It's not millimole, it is parts per million. And normally I'm usually around the 28, 26, and anything above 10 is okay on that scale. But my ketones were going as low as 2 when I was taking
no way.
fermented A2 milk. So I knew,
No.
yes, I knew that this is because of the whey. which is in the milk.
Oh my gosh.
So for milk, I think the best people to take milk are children who are 6 years and below. Why would I say that? Because number one, they still have milk teeth. So
Mm,
if the milk, if the sugar in the milk destroys their teeth, they are going to have permanent teeth. And
yeah.
maybe those ones who are still growing up, let's say up to the age of, let's say 18, because usually people up the age of 18, people are still growing in height. So they could take fermented milk. They shouldn't take much really, because
Mm,
yeah, insulin is a growth hormone, and since they're still growing, they can get away with the milk. But again, we have to remember that if milk is not pasteurized, it has the sugar, the lactose, and lactose can still lead to decay, because it is a carbohydrate, tooth decay.
mm.
Now, if you ferment the milk, there is no lactose, but there is acid. That lactobacillus, it produces some sort of acid. If you have
Okay.
taken any fermented milk, you feel there's that acidic
Sourness.
taste. Now,
Yeah.
any acid is going to wear the enamel of the tooth. So once you
Really?
take that milk, it can begin wearing the enamel of the teeth. So milk is really for children, but for us as adults, I believe we can benefit from the other products of milk, especially cow ghee and butter. I know that if you go to things like cheese, they also contain whey, some bit of it. Most of the other products contain whey, and people have to be careful with those things, you know. But I think a few days ago again, the experiment is still going on, and I realized that if
Mm.
I can take 100 ml of raw A2 milk, that one doesn't seem
Oh,
to
it's
increase insulin, because once I take 100 mils of milk, when I check my ketones, they are not affected in any way. So if someone is not bothered about what's going to happen to the teeth, you can go ahead and take A2 milk, but it cannot be so much. In my
mm.
analysis, 100 mils or less in 24 hours can be okay. Yeah, so basically, you asked me what I eat, and I've told you so many things. I don't think I'm good at answering questions, but
Oh, why? No,
yeah,
you
basically,
are. You're so thorough.
that's what I've been eating on Carnivore.
I think, and even my husband said that this will be my best interview on my channel, and no doubt, it is the
Really,
best.
really. Now, maybe I also need to be open. Once in a while, I eat avocado, and once in a while, I also add onions to my food. The reason why
Okay.
I do that is because sometime back, remember, COVID happened, and we realized that people who had more skills, or who were having this and that, and they were, it was easier for them to survive. Let's say, for example, if you had only one job and then you cannot work in Africa here, then surviving was very, very difficult. People had multiple skills, had ways of keeping with the food and surviving. I mean, in terms of livelihood, I'm not talking about in terms of surviving the virus,
The-
because
Yeah.
people were grounded and people stopped working and they didn't have food.
Mm.
Here we had people who committed suicide because they didn't have food. But someone
Oh
who
my God.
had a number of things to do survived. So I thought in my heart, what if we get in a scenario whereby meat is not available and my body has forgotten to eat plants? So I eat avocado, let's say, once in about 2 months, and again, it's not always much. It's just that my body just doesn't completely forget, but I
Okay.
don't think
Yeah.
of myself as a like I said, I despise plants. So it's just for just. It's not because I really enjoy it,
Like,
but I
yeah.
want my body to keep remembering that just in
Hmm.
case. And again, these are things which I know that they will not increase insulin. But really, carnivore is my thing.
Do you eat organ meat?
Yes, I do. I eat organ meats. I eat liver. Actually, even yesterday I ate liver. Um, and the way how I eat organ meats is I usually take it together with ground beef. Ground beef, and
Okay.
then I get this chop, let's say liver, whether it is heart, whether it is kidney, but for the most part it's liver. So I add it to the ground beef with lots of soup. And what I do, I even add a lot of tallow. So for me, my way of eating fat is I make sure that I dissolve it in soup because it's much easier for me to consume it when it is part of soup. I've seen people who just bite on things like butter. That's difficult for me. But once it is with soup, with salt, I drink it together with it. I eat meat, I drink the soup, and then everything works out. Of course, you know when you start in carnivore, that will first give you
That's what it is.
diarrhea, but
Yeah.
later on, the diarrhea stops and life goes on as normal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so organ meats, yes, I do. I eat them. I saw your list you shared. I don't. I have not tried brain, and I'm not sure I want to try it very soon. Maybe if I run out of the other things to eat. But all the other things, really, the tongue, when I get a chance, I eat. I enjoy organ meats. Um, but of course, according to the coaches, they tell us that we shouldn't eat too much of them. It should be occasional
Yeah.
because these ones are nutrient dense. For example, liver contains a lot of vitamin A, and that one could it can lead to problems, to some issues. So I don't take it that much. I take it maybe once a week, once in 2 weeks. Sometimes I can
Hmm.
take it even like 2 times in a week, but not every day, really.
I love liver, and I when I eat it, I usually have it with onion because the combination is just heaven to me. So that's the only plant that is in my life. But
Yeah,
yeah,
onion
I
is
do it.
yeah, it is. I mean, there's way how it makes the food to be more palatable. For the most part, actually,
Yeah.
I'll tell you that these onions, I've started eating onions about 2 weeks ago. I've not been eating them. I've been carnivore
Okay.
for about I think for about 18 months, and about yeah, that's like 1.5 years, and I've not been eating onions at all. I've not been having any spices, nothing. We just boil our meat, we add salt, and then we eat. And that's what we do. But I mean, I well, especially when you're eating ground beef, I don't know for some reason it doesn't taste as for us for what I've seen doesn't taste as good as boiled meat. So we add a little bit of onions to make it a little bit more palatable. Yeah.
Mm, okay. Have you seen the videos of people who eat raw meat?
Yes, I have, and I've also tried to eat raw meat. Not much, but I've eaten a little bit of raw meat, and I mean, I think I think raw meat is okay as long as the animal is healthy. Because uh, why not? Why not? I have no problem with raw meat. Of course, because we have grown up eating cooked meat, I don't find real reasons why I should eat raw meat. But if I
Yeah.
find myself in a situation whereby I can't cook, there's no way to cook, I wouldn't hesitate eating raw meat.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know because when I think about our heritage and how Africa used to be, I I make a huge assumption that raw meat was the norm.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Yeah, of course, because I mean, um, for example, if you think about these people who are moving from here to there, the nomads, maybe
Mm.
so many years ago, people didn't have fire. Even when I was growing up, by the way, it was not a common thing for people to have. At least I've grown up in some communities whereby people almost never had matchboxes. So fire was
Yeah.
something which was precious. Like people would make fire and they keep fire. Fire keeps there. There's way how, let's say if they have this firewood, when they're done with their cooking, they cover the firewood with ash, and that fire keeps there.
Mm.
They don't
Mm.
have matchboxes. So now, fire has not always been there up to the last how many years? Maybe 25 years. Once you go to the countryside anyway. So
Yeah.
I believe people have been eating raw meat in the past, several years ago, and why not? I mean, for example, you think about the wild animals, they don't cook. They eat the animal, the meat the way it is, and they don't get issues. Well, some people could
Yeah.
argue this and this. These are wild animals. We are people. What? But I don't think I don't think that anything bad can happen if we eat raw meat, really, as long as the animals are healthy.
I have done my own experiment of cooked versus raw meat, and I hate to say it, but when I eat cooked meat, my stomach still gets a little bit distended, a little bit bloated. And when I eat raw, I stay flat, like no matter what I eat, no matter how much I eat. And as a woman, that is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Wow, that is interesting. Really interesting.
Actually, there's a study that I need to share with you and get your opinion, but we will talk about that in our next video. I will tell you
Well,
about it offline.
yeah,
It's
I look forward. I look forward to that study. Really, sure. But that one, what you're talking about is really it makes sense. It makes sense. Well, personally, when I went carnivore, I no longer bloat, and I still think that with time, even the bloating will go away with the cooked meat. Because
mm,
we don't take the same time. Healing takes it's different. It's different for different people. Some people heal quickly, others take longer. And the bloating usually, as long as you're healed, once you heal, then the bloating completely goes. So I believe that even the little which is there with the boiled or with the cooked meat, with the time it's going to go away. Yeah.
yeah, I agree. It's only been 9 months for me anyway, and I can't even say I was fully carnivore during those 9 months because of my 3 months high A1 pasteurized dairy. So I'm still recovering from that. But yeah, like you, I have so many wonderful things that have happened. And as you said, carnivore is the answer for probably most people on this earth.
Yeah, it is. I don't know why. Some people, when the people are talking on the internet, on YouTube, even the coaches, they say they don't think carnival is for everyone. Some of them say like that, but in my heart, I don't believe it. I believe carnival is for everyone. But the reasons why some people get challenges is I mean, you for the whole of your life you've been eating plants. So once you switch to animals, the body needs time to switch also. And it takes time for the body to learn to use food, learn to use ketones. In the beginning,
Mm,
I've seen this one in my own life, in my own health. At first, I would used to have, I would check on the ketone meter I'm having ketones and a number of them, but I would still feel weak in my legs, and I'll be like, why is it that my body is not using the ketones? I'm supposed to be feeling the energy, but I'm not feeling it. But now, as I speak, I feel more energy in my joints and in my legs. It is not as much as what I hear people saying, but I know I'm getting there. So the body always needs more time to adapt. So once people switch from plants and then they start eating meat, the body sometimes takes long. That's number one. Number two, I mean, and part of the body adjusting, there's also the fact that insulin is low and people tend to get in a state of dehydration. This comes with headaches and joint pains and what have you. And some people have been eating so many plants with the uh, uh, oxalates and and these things have a negative impact. Like if you've been eating oxalates for a long time, too much of them, and then you stop eating them, the body wants to dump them. That one comes with the symptoms. So, and people once they eat plants, the problems seem to subside. So they think that meat is actually not good for them, but plants are good for them. But
Yeah.
we know for a fact that once you're having oxidate dumping, if you eat plants with some oxidates, then you get relief. That one doesn't
Yeah.
mean that the meat is not good for you, but it means that your body is still adjusting. It takes time. But I strongly believe, okay, without any doubt, I know meat is for everyone. If people can understand what it means for the body to transform from feeding on plants to feeding on animal-based foods.
I agree with you. I do believe that, but we have a lot of work to do in that case because we have a lot of subtle convincing to do. We can't force anyone, but we are living proof. And thank you so much for sharing your very touching story. It's my favorite carnivore story for sure. I will never forget it. And I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for your family. Thank God that you
Yeah,
found carnivore.
thank you so much for inviting me. It is, I'm so delighted. I'm so happy that you invited me to your channel, to this show. And just like you said, we have a lot of work to do. Just like Professor Ben Bickman says, I'm also beating this drum of carnivore as much as I can. I heard you sometimes saying you've been talking to your friends, and you know, sometimes they don't want you to talk to them because they know what you're about to talk. The same thing happens here. You talk to people, you know, the addiction of the carbs is real. They cannot imagine living without carbs. But we shall keep on
Yeah,
beating this drum and blow this trumpet, and people begin understanding, you know, and then they will plan their lives, plan their meals very well, and more people, especially on this African continent, they will come to understand because we also have diseases here. We have conditions. I see people, almost everyone who is in their 60s, they have either diabetes or hypertension or whatever. They always have. I see them in the hospitals. So there is so much work to be done, but we are ready. You know, I'm ready to use my energy and my resources. I don't care even if I'm not, I don't, for me, if people embrace carnivore, that is my joy. You know, that is something which money cannot buy.
yeah.
You know, when someone says you helped me, I don't know I believe you watch Dr.
Mm.
Kenberry. And there are times when they show clips when people are giving testimonies. Dr. Kenberry saved my life. So many people they say that. Now, that is something which money cannot buy. And if I can get that, I know that I've fulfilled my purpose in life. So
I
thank you so
know. I
much for
feel
bringing me to this show. Thank you so much.
you will be a regular for sure.
I
If
always
you if
I look forward to
accept.
that. Yeah, of course, why not? This is what I want. This is what I want, and I'll keep doing this. I'm even reorganizing my life around Carnivore. The dreams I'm having, I'm thinking of, starting to raise animals and do this and do that, so that as far as the carnivore is concerned, even if people have to come and camp at my house, so that they can have carnivore from there, that will be my biggest. That will be my biggest achievement in life. So I'm ready and prepared to do this as my lifetime vocation, if need be.
I love it, and I will be there to support you all the way. And you saying that, I'm like, we need to do a carnivore retreat in all the African countries.
Yeah, of course. Let's see. Let's work on getting contacts on people joining Carnivore, and then we shall have those retreats. What I have thought about those things. I even have thought of maybe making announcements in my region so that I can call people. They come together, and then I tell them about Carnivore. You can't imagine the weird thoughts I'm having about telling people about Carnivore. When I think about Carnivore, I get excited. I want to tell the people so they know
I
that
know.
there's a way out. I want the whole world to know, just like you. Yeah, sure.
Well, this video is the beginning of many, many things that we can't even imagine. So we said it here first. We'll come back in 5 years and be like, oh my gosh, look what happened.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much. You're so knowledgeable. Thank you for sharing so much information, especially from an African point of view. You have educated me, and I'm sure you've educated everybody watching. So, as I said, you'll be back, whether you like it or not. So, everybody, please follow Carnivore Africa. He has his own YouTube channel. And is there any other social media presence that you have? And is there any other way that people can contact you? Because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people.
Yeah, of course, there's the Carnivore Africa, with the K in the Carnivore and the K in the Africa. And then I'm also on Facebook. It is still Carnivore Africa, the same thing. And then, of course, there is a email uh, to minocent@gmail.com. So those are ways how people can reach me.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll put all the info in the description below so that people can get the spelling right and find you. So thank you again. Thank you a million times, and all the best.
Thank you, and greetings to your family and to your husband.
Thank you so much.